I think making best of what we have probably is the thing that matters to me the most.
Hello, friends. I hope you're all keeping well. My guest today is a children's respiratory specialist and the deputy medical director at Birmingham Women's and Children's Hospital, Dr. Satish Rao. I'm really excited to be speaking to him. Do join us in this chat. Namaste, Dr. Satish Rao. Welcome to Chat with Chitra. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. I've had a very relaxing weekend, relaxing day. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Excellent. I would like to start by asking you about your childhood. I believe you grew up in India, right? How has it shaped your personal perspective as of today?
Really happy childhood. It's a standard middle class family where parents have seen hardships. They have seen a lot of poverty. Both parents had seen poverty. My father still talks about a time when he would be walking along the streets with torn banyan vests during Deepavali, and then picking up half-burned firecrackers from the streets, get them together and light them up. They had seen a lot of poverty, and again, on my mother's side, big family and typical sort of story. But we didn't see poverty. We didn't have luxury, but comfortable life, not a problem with a roof over your head and 2 square meals. So that kept us grounded. I think that's first thing is to value what we had and really stayed grounded. And I think that's been a massive life lesson. I think lots of love. We didn't have lots of luxury, small house, basics, and you had to work hard. It taught us quite a lot on being dedicated and being determined and disciplined, those sorts of things. But at the same time, lots of love from parents, from my brother. I have an older brother and a younger sister. Lots of love from them and extended family. Extended family, as you know, in India, you call them brothers and sisters, and so quite spoiled actually. In that sense, lots of attention. And because I think as a child, I was probably not a very it's ironical because I had two parts to me. I mean, on one hand, in some areas in safe place, there could be no person more confident than I am. But at the same time, new situations or new places, etc., I would be very anxious and not very confident at all. So my family protected me, extended family, and my mother especially, quite a protective influence on that. So I think that essentially meant, although I was quite anxious and things like that, maybe just looking back, I mean, it never felt like that when I was growing up, but when I look back now, but I think that bit of protective environment has given me the confidence, I feel. So that is another thing. Main, what at least I learned from my family is you had to be part of a community. And our circle was just not five of us ever. Our circle was always big. I cannot remember a day when it is just the five of us having a meal together, whether it is a lunch or dinner. There would always be people. So they may be some friends arrive or some people who have been specifically invited because they did not have anywhere else to go. There were students coming from villages studying in Bengaluru. I think you never sort of cooked for yourself, just almost like I think my parents lived, even today, they live their life like that, almost the way, Krishna talks about in Karma Yoga, that, he says, if you just cook for yourself, then you're a bad person type of thing.
Sure.
So even though my parents did not have a lot of material wealth and material things, but still the way they could still be part of people's lives, support in their own way, was exceedingly, humbling to see. And I think that's one thing that I have carried through. And it was quite telling. I mean, 2 or 3 years back, my dad turned 80 years. So he had his 80th birthday. What was supposed to be 10, 15, 20 people or 50 people even turned out to be hundreds of people.
Wow.
because lots of them were not even invited, but they just wanted to come and say thanks. So
Sure.
they just wanted to say, fantastic stories on how at some point in their crucial point in their life, he had made a difference. Either it may be just lending a few rupees or opening a door or an opportunity here or stuff. I think in that sense, it was complete upbringing. All dimensions of the personality were catered to. It was just not, it was the studies, it was growing up with people, being part of people's life, and a little bit of service, little bit of spirituality. All of those things were there. You didn't have to do anything extra. You didn't have to, that was all there in every moment of your life. You don't necessarily appreciate it then, but now when you look back and you think, wow, it was such a rich life. It was a complete life.
That's so very good to hear. And I'm sure upbringing is a very, very important part which actually shapes a person. So if you have a good upbringing, and obviously you become a very confident individual later in your life. Your life story is so very inspiring. Did you actually want to become a doctor, or was it ingrained? Like I'm sure most of the South Indian families, we all, either it was in the, at least in my generation rather, it was, you take up engineering or medicine, and there is no other vocation besides that. I mean, were your parents also with the same kind of mindset, or were you allowed to do what you want to?
I think it was slightly inevitable for them too. I'm pretty sure they would have wanted us to encourage in any shape or direction that we wanted to, but
Sure.
but those days India was different, and
Yeah.
it was livelihood. It wasn't like my dad could hand over a big wealth or a big company to me. So it was, well, his wealth was educating his children and saying, well, actually now you've got to be independent and
Sure.
explore opportunities. So I think in that sense, I'm pretty sure each one of us would have done exactly what our parents did. I feel, because it was, you had to do it that way. I was always a people's person. It was what essentially made me happy, was with being with people and being part of their life.
Mm.
And really the machines and those sorts of things did not appeal to me. It had to be something that involved working with people a lot. So I mean, at one time when I was in primary school, I probably had about 20-25 friends at any one time. It was a big group of friends. So I remember setting up what we call a star team cricketers. We called ourselves. I mean, we didn't have those tennis balls that were actual proper tennis balls. You would only get in tennis clubs. What we bought in the streets, in the shops, would just split. That ball would split, and the wickets, etc. We didn't have any of that. It used to be one or two boys who would essentially bring these wickets and bat and stuff, and then they would then dictate their terms. They would, you could not say they were out, and you could not say this or that to them, otherwise they would walk away.
Yeah. Mm.
So it is those sorts of times. I remember that I set up a, what we basically did a raffle. My friends and I, we sat down and wrote down few chits of paper, lucky dip, whatever we used to call them, and it was 25 paisa, 50 paisa per ticket.
Mm.
So we went from door to door, and then we sold those tickets. And I think we got in the end something like 24-25 rupees, which helped us buy 3 wickets. I still remember, because each stump was 8 rupees each. So we had 24 stumps, 24 rupees for that. And we had made, I think, 30 rupees or so. Another 4 or 5 rupees we had to spend on gifts for that lucky dip, whatever we had to. So I think right from then, it was, what I enjoyed was a people element. And I think, so then when you are left with a choice between a doctor and an engineer, I think medicine appealed. However, medicine was much, much tougher. I applied for medicine in 90, and at that time in Karnataka, you had 1,000 medical seats. That's all for the entire state, and 50% of that was reservation. So you would have 500 seats are essentially taken away for reservation, and out of the remaining 500 seats, about 200 or 220 were general merit seats, and rest of them, then you would have some payment seats where you could buy the seats as well in the private medical colleges. So you were essentially Karnataka level. You had about 200 odd seats to play with. It was always a little bit of a, yeah, I want to do it, but it is extremely difficult. And then and ended up getting into Bangalore Medical College, which is one of the best in the state, if not in the country. And for that, you had to be in the top 50 in the state. So I managed to get in the top 50 and stuff. So I think medicine always appealed because it was people.
Yeah.
But there was always this bit of, will I be able to get in or not? Because I don't think we would have been able to afford payment seats. Even a place in a private medical college where you would have to, even on merit in private medical colleges, I don't think my dad would have been able to afford the fees. So
Yeah.
you had to get into government medical college on merit seat, then it was affordable.
But in those days, I think it was highly competitive, and the
Yes.
number of seats were very, very few. But things have changed, and you have a lot more of options these days, a lot more opportunities. You're a highly successful physician and also the deputy medical director of Birmingham Children and Women's Hospital. Now, such positions come with a great sense of responsibility. What do these actually mean to you?
I think you are right. It comes with a great deal of responsibility. I think the fundamental thing for me is there is plenty of things to be done for children, youngsters in this country and across the world.
Mm.
Birmingham has high levels of poverty. There is quite high levels of childhood poverty. And just within Birmingham, it is then comes with an opportunity to shape healthcare within Birmingham. But Children's Hospital in Birmingham also caters for region as well as national. Some of our services are national services. So children come out from all four countries, all four nations
Right.
for treatment. It is that bit of a passion for improving lives in very little way. I mean, I think it is all just one drop in ocean. At Children's Hospital, we are one small bit of these families' life, and what we are trying to do there is make a positive impact where we can, and that is what keeps us going across in the organization. And for me, that is what it is about. See, women and children care is a social enterprise project across the world. We pay lip service to women and children healthcare, especially children healthcare is just lip service because it is not a good business model across the world. You do not invest millions of pounds in children healthcare. Because you just don't have the returns for it.
Right.
So I think in that sense, children's healthcare is they obviously we have to invest because they are the future. But ironically, we don't invest, whether it is in UK, whether it is developed world or developing world. That's not enough is invested in healthcare in a holistic sense for children and youngsters at all. Yeah, and to a certain extent in developing world, even the maternity healthcare, women healthcare is also neglected. In some way, it keeps that passion going. The ambition for me is obviously to play a positive role here in the UK and certainly locally in Birmingham. But also, there is a little bit of hunger to reach out worldwide. Little ways we've been fortunate from organization and from my team's point of view that we are able to impact on children's health. We have to be humble with these things because it's just a few drops in the ocean. In India, we are reaching out for children in India, youngsters in India, and those sorts of stuff. And also in Pakistan, we have got a few projects going on in Pakistan. So working in NHS gives you quite a lot of privileges. We are extremely fortunate. Yes, we have been busy during the pandemic, and our colleagues in the adult sector have been at the front line. They have been fighting COVID and stuff, and we've played more supportive role, deploying staff into the adult sector as well as making sure children are looked after, so that these adult organizations don't need to worry about children. We can look after them, type of thing. But still, it gives us a bit of privilege. I have still kept an employment. I have not had to take a drop in my salary, and all of those securities, my pensions, etc., still being looked after by the nation. So I think for me there is that sense of privilege, and with that comes a bit of responsibility too. Number of families have they are going through extreme poverty, hardships, etc., and we have been protected from a lot of that then again gives me that sense of responsibility. Look, we have got a little more than what common citizens of this country have had all through my working career, as especially during the pandemic. I have felt that more and more. So then that builds a little bit of, okay, why stop here when things can be a little bit better? Why can't we do this a little more? Just not in this country can we reach out to people across the world.
That's really good. It is very important for us to actually give back to the community. It is our responsibility. It's a kind of a social responsibility as responsible citizens. I know your daughter is into music. Have you had any exposure to music right from your childhood? What is music to you?
I have been extremely lucky where actually I grew up in midst of music. My mother is a Carnatic classical singer. The morning started with Akashwani's, 6 o'clock Vande Mataram, and then one a program after another. I was so lucky that throughout my growing years, music has been part of me. My regret is I did not learn music formally. I used to sing, and I can still sing a little bit, but really badly these days. I wish I had listened to my mother. So she would try and take me to classes and stuff. But I used to love singing, etc., and listen to lots of music, both classical music and Kannada film songs, Hindi film songs, and all of that. But now, more and more, I have felt that regret that I did not actually learn something formally. Wish I could have learned it formally. In the recent years, my children have enhanced my life. I had never listened to Western classical music. Brother started listening to. He's again an avid music listener. Again, both of us listen to a lot of music, but again, he hasn't learned anything formally, but we enjoy good music. So Hindustani music he introduced to me. I mean, he spent a lot of time outside of home. His engineering course was in Mysore when we were living in Bangalore, and that kind of stuff. So, Bhim Sen Joshi, and he introduced me to that Hindustani sort of singers. And then my children introduced me to Western classical. So I could never understand Western classical. Somehow music is a language, isn't it? I mean, I could not understand it, so I couldn't relate to it. But when my children started playing music, then you make an emotional connection. So then I started to listen to a little bit. So I think I'm an avid listener, and I would have loved to have learned something formally.
We want our children to take up those, our aspirations as much as possible, and give them an opportunity to make them learn. And if they are passionate about it, they will continue to do so. That's fantastic.
I think for them it is nice that they have learned something formally. Whatever they do, I think at some stage they will get back to it. I'm pretty sure. I think life will get busier for them as they go through university years and as they're setting up their first set of careers and stuff. But once life settles down a bit, I think they will have something to go back to. And even during that time, they will have something that that is their own, and that will be nice.
Absolutely. It will give them a sense of achievement. Besides their professional qualification or skill sets, they do have other accomplishments. That's something very valuable from a parent's perspective, that what a parent can give to their children, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah. I asked this question to all of my guests. What is it that matters to you the most, and why?
I think making best of what we have probably is the thing that matters to me the most in every sense, whether it is your personal life, whether it's family life, professional life, etc. It is just trying to make the best of the situation and giving your best probably. And that is when I feel at peace to say, well, actually, yes, I mean, of course, when things don't go your way, you feel a little disappointed and all of that, but I think you get over it. That you finally figure out that some things will work your way, some things won't. But I think what I have finally, after that initial disappointment settles down, I think you feel, if I have tried my best under those situations, I've given it all, then I'm happy. I don't know. I carry a sense of guilt in the sense that I feel when I look at myself, there are millions of people who are more deserving than me. Whether as a doctor or whatever, and it is only few things are the things that I have done, but a lot of things have happened for me, to be in a family, to have the support, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So therefore, that essentially to me says, look, don't take anything for granted. There is always still more to do, because somebody else should have been here, whether I'm as a doctor at Children's Hospital or deputy medical director or whatever. There are millions of people who are more talented, more deserving. It is just that I happen to be at the right place at the right time. A series of things happen. I've ended up here, so that keeps me on my toes. Yes, there are times when I go into a complaining mode, and obviously, yeah, I mean, there are times when my wife and children will want to disown me, certainly, but majority of the time, for me, just to turn that around and say, fine, okay, let's look at what I've got here, and
Yeah.
how to make best use of it.
That's so beautifully put, and I really appreciate honest feedback. Fantastic. Have you got any untraveled paths? What is next for you?
I don't know actually, because see, I think for me, I find it difficult to plan my steps exactly. I can't do it that way. But I generally know my direction of travel. Now, if I look at in my career, there is plenty that I can offer. There's plenty to be done, and there are bigger stages where I can contribute. For example, the way the career has grown is I used to look after a group of patients, then it became respiratory department, became my family, then it was much wider, and now Children's Hospital is my family. But I know, I would like to come into a space of, affecting, health of children who don't even come into Children's Hospital, for
Yes.
instance,
Mm.
and at some point at a national level and even at a global level. So, I mean, that is as far as my plans go. So, there are little things that are happening more and more I'm getting involved with shaping healthcare in children's healthcare in Birmingham. More and more I've done little pieces of work in national stage. And then there are few things that come about in India. We are trying to affect certain things. Again, those are very little that I have orchestrated, but quite a lot of times it is being in good company. It is being in company of people who have those ideas, and then you can add in your bits and shape their plans and things like that. So I think that is where probably I'm heading to now. I know that, if everything permitting, health and everything sort of permitting, I'll probably be contributing to bigger and bigger group.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, and I'm sure you will go a very long way with a lot of successes in the years to come. What is the advice that you would like to give the younger generation to be successful in their career? Because these days, you see, there's a lot of stress and anxiety, more closer towards choice of their career. Whatever they want to take, whatever they want to aspire for, what would be your advice to these young people?
I think I would say take your time. It is inevitable that you go through different phases of development.
Mm.
And then as you go through your growth, initially, you are guided by your parents, then it is a peer support, etc. And it takes a while for you to know yourself. And one thing that when I look at my own children, they do not have a space and a time that they are on their own, because you're always connected to the world. You're always connected. And what that essentially means is you are not spending enough time with yourself. But at that age, when you're a child or when you're a youngster, you will not think about it in along the lines of I'm trying to discover myself. Those are the sorts of things that you will say when you're my age. But some of those times that you spend alone without being connected, completely disconnected.
Mm.
When we grew up, that was a boon. I always keep saying that I would have made such a big failure if I was born in this generation. This would have driven me crazy.
Mm.
The sort of kid I was, if I was constantly connected and I was constantly under the gaze of somebody else, whether it is social media, this, that, or the other, I think I would have just gone crazy. Just trying that practice of whether just trying to disconnect and just having a little bit of time, whether it may be a walk on your own or whatever. That is a foundation I would say is important during the formative years. See, the academic side of things, that goes on, and you're driven by a set of external indicators. You have to do certain tests, etc., etc. And then professionally, you get a slight inkling that this is the line that I want to take. I will not be good at this, or I'll be good at that kind of stuff. Those are external things. And even to the extent that you're not listening to a music, and these days even walk is with a
Yeah,
with,
true.
I mean, that's become a normal way of life.
Yes.
I think we didn't have to, at least I didn't have to struggle much when I was little to disconnect from the world. There wasn't much of these things happening anyway. So you came out from school, and that hour or so before you went out to play again on the streets, that was your disconnection from the school.
Yeah.
So you basically disconnected. It is a roundabout way of saying, I think what I found valuable, which has helped me, is that little bit of staying disconnected and being comfortable in my own company. And that would not have been possible today if that hadn't, I don't think I planned it, I designed it. It happened by chance.
Yeah.
But that bit that happened during my childhood time is actually looking after me today.
Sure.
So I think that may be, otherwise children are brighter. I don't think they need any career advice. They do not need any advice on how to follow their passion and those sorts of things. Children are a lot more mature than and youngsters were than I was at their age. But that is the only thing that I feel they are missing. They are not disconnecting from the external world and just spending time on their own, completely disconnected. I think that is something they have to build it into their lives, whether it is even 5 minutes of meditation or just going out for a walk without connected to the iPhones or whatever.
Yeah.
That I think they will find the value of that later on in life.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's very valuable input. In fact, you need to have time to self-reflect or self-analyze even for a few minutes every day, and that would create a very, very positive impact to at least calm down, calm the mind, and make it in a...
Otherwise you don't know what you are, because you're constantly being bombarded by what you need to be by outside, and the difficulty is then you mistake that image that has been created by whatever external media that you are listening, and you mistake it that is who you are.
Yeah, true.
And that is where a lot of your issues are. See, I think at the end of the day, when you're 15, 16 years of age, friends are your life. You have to be out with friends. That everything has you have to go through that bit of social and emotional development.
Yes.
But today the difficulty is you cannot just be on your own.
That's a big challenge, especially for the younger people. So I think
for all of us, I feel, for all of us, I think, it is.
Of course, yeah. I think if we want the young generation to, follow a, much more calmer and, progressive path in terms of not only just academics and also their general life, grooming as a good person, as a good individual. So I think you need time to self-reflect and self-analyze. You said it right, yeah. Lastly, I just want to touch base on the current COVID situation. Would it be possible for you to give me the current condition of the COVID at the Birmingham Children's and Women's Hospital from your vantage point? How is it? We hear in the news that it has been on the decline and the vaccine rollouts are happening simultaneously. What exactly is your view on this?
We were fortunate in one sense that children did not get too unwell or get unwell at all, even after they contracted COVID. So in terms of, so we have not had many poorly children at Children's Hospital because of COVID. They have been poorly for other reasons that they will be for, as they would at any other, any other year, not pandemic at all. I think where children have been affected is because during the first wave, we had to take down a whole load of elective activity, because at that time we did not know, how children would get affected by COVID, and also we had to protect staff as well. We had to make sure staff were protected, and therefore, what that essentially meant is we went through a good few months where all we did was urgent work and emergency work. So that essentially has meant we have, big case load of children waiting for various elective procedures. With children's services, essentially what happens is there is only one children's hospital for entire region. There are at least 3 or 4 adult hospitals in Birmingham alone, even before you go to region. But in children's, essentially what happens is you are the only hospital for the entire region. So, when you start to recover, it isn't like you can call on many different people to try and help you. So we have to get through our workload on our own. Okay, so that's number one. So that means there are a number of children who are waiting for procedures and tests and those sorts of things, if we cannot act on that and get them done, as soon as possible in the coming months, that could end up having a long term health effect for them. you know
Right.
in pediatrics, we're not dealing with children dying. Our problem is children haven't still lived their life, and if we cannot give them the best outcomes now, they are going to carry that disability, they are going to carry that poor outcome for rest of their life. That is a challenge for pediatrics. So how can we try and recover as quickly as possible, at the same time, protecting the staff and stuff. But in the last 4 or 6 weeks is we have been helping out and supporting our adult trusts. So in the first wave, we didn't have to deploy staff into UHB, into University Hospitals Birmingham. However, from January, we've had to do. We have had in excess of 100 staff working, doctors, nurses, working at various sites. So we had to down tools in Children's Hospital, and we had to go out and help our adult colleagues. Our frontline, running adult wards, working in intensive care units, and doctors working as nurses on intensive care units. That again, we will continue, and that's where I have been busy sort of mobilizing all of this. At the same time, keeping the urgent and emergency work going on at Children's Hospital. So at all levels, nurses, consultants, junior doctors, we've been trying to help adult services. And that we envisage will still continue for a few more weeks, because although the numbers are coming down, the patients who are still in hospitals on intensive care unit will still take number of weeks to come out, get discharged.
Sure.
That is where we've concentrated. So that essentially meant we were just about starting to get back to normalcy. And now that's all has gone down. And the challenge now will be to get back on our feet. And we will not have the luxury of time, because a number of children are waiting for various procedures.
Yeah.
Against this backdrop, you have, and it is also quite fascinating how much of health needs of these children were provided by schools and education sector is actually, on one hand, it is absolutely fantastic, but on the other hand, it is also a little bit worrying. So lots of children, because they have not been able to go back to schools,
yeah,
their physical health has suffered, because a lot of times their health needs were being met at school by teachers, where there are school nurses and things like that. And that infrastructure has again broken down. So that means, a whole load of children with chronic health problems, that health infrastructure breaking down has meant their health outcomes have been affected. Okay. So this is even before we get to their mental health side of things. We know that their mental health in terms of anxieties, depressions, etc., that's gone through the roof now. Various figures are being quoted. Increase of 25%, 30% increase mental health problems in youngsters and in children, because their routine has broken down. Whatever they need, what was normal for them isn't happening. So I think in that sense, children have paid a big price, and youngsters have paid a big price in this pandemic. Now we don't see this out in the media. You don't see media talking about this. You don't see this in any of the social platforms, social media platforms. So our anxiety is children are unsung heroes here, and they have essentially taken quite a big hit in every sense, in health, social, mental health, education, and every sense. And our fear is, will we be able to recover from this?
Exactly.
See, the deaths are something which we will see. The adults, over 100,000 deaths, those things are visible.
Yeah.
And you can see the death coming down. But the price that children are paying is only going to be apparent in a few years' time. And that is our anxiety. People who work with children, what have we lost? In this 1 year, and we've lost, and what is the magnitude of the loss, and how can you quantify that? That will only become clear in years to come.
I think it will take quite a few years, isn't it, by the time to restore or stabilize, at least.
And I think in pediatrics, the worst hasn't still come. The damage this pandemic has done, we haven't still seen it, and it will be another 18 months, 2 years, by the time we will know the real damage that this pandemic has done to our children and youngsters. Yeah.
Oh my. Yeah. And now that the government has started rolling out the vaccines, there are actually mixed opinions. And if you see the statistics, or at least what we see in the news, we understand most of the Asian and ethnic minorities, they have a kind of a mistrust towards the vaccine. What is your view, Satish? What do you advise? I mean, is it safe? What could be the side effects of this vaccine? Does it have any side effect at all?
I think my advice, the only advice is, if you get offered vaccine, take it. And it almost can be said that if you don't take the vaccine, you're almost being negligent. That is what I would probably go to the extent of saying that.
Right.
Now, the science is there, and there are lots of studies published on various different vaccines. Certainly the vaccines that are administered in this country have gone through a sort of scientific rigor that you would expect for any treatment. And the nature is obviously, in terms of the only bits of information we don't have is on the longer term efficacies, and that's only because we haven't had that long. That is the only bit of information that is missing. In terms of your short-term efficacies, there are, irrespective of what type of vaccine it is, especially the ones that are rolled out in UK, there is plenty of evidence. There is evidence in terms of lack of serious side effects. Again, thousands of doses have been analyzed. Apart from the, some of the side effects such as soreness in the arm where the vaccine is given, or a little bit of a flu-like symptoms, there is no other serious side effect. And with time, we will also learn more about for how long this vaccine is going to be protective.
Right.
For how long is it going to be protective? And those sorts of things, time will tell us, because that information is not available, not because it's only not available because we haven't had that length of time. People are still studying, and that will come out. So I think my advice is, if you are in the group that qualifies for vaccination, and if you're called for vaccine, then I would not have any hesitation in having the vaccine. I've had my vaccine, and so have majority of people, of the staff of Women's and Children's Hospital. So yeah, I had a little bit of a soreness, which I do. In fact, it was actually better than what I have with my annual flu vaccine. Annual flu vaccine, I tend to develop quite a bit of pain in my arm for 24, 48 hours. Whereas with this one, yes, there was a little bit of soreness, but nothing that I was not able to handle with a bit of paracetamol, really.
Right. So, okay. That's very, very valuable advice coming from you. I'm sure this message will reach a wider audience. We now move on to the second segment, which is called the lighter side of you. How would you describe yourself in 3 words?
Funny, probably funny, complicated.
Funny, a little complicated, and a simple person.
Complicated in some ways, but simple in lots of ways too.
How would you like to spend your time when you're not working?
Reading. I read. Yeah. And listen to music, but reading comes first. And then there is a bit of music playing in the background.
What's the closest thing to real magic?
I think it has to be beautiful musical piece. I think that's magic.
What is your absolute dream job?
I think the one I'm doing now, really. Yeah, in fact, the funny thing is I didn't even dream about this job, but yeah, the one I'm doing now, yeah, I would probably not want to trade it for anything else. Yeah.
Fantastic. My next question is, if you could learn one new professional skill besides your work, what would that be?
I think I might have missed the boat on this. I would probably want to learn to sing, but I might have missed the boat on this.
Right.
Something more formally I would like to try, but yeah. Okay. So don't know if it's possible. If it's still there, I have no idea.
The best piece of advice you have ever been given?
I think be humble.
What's your favorite book?
To Kill a Mockingbird, I think, is my favorite one.
As a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, it's funny. I wanted to be a bus conductor. I wanted to be a bus conductor on that Bangalore-Mysore route. That is what I used to always play. So I used to be, that was my dream. That was a big,
Fantastic.
yeah.
And how many languages do you speak?
It will be English, Kannada, and Hindi.
Okay. What are your strengths?
Quiet determination.
Right. Okay. Do you think you could live without your smartphone for 24 hours?
Oh, easily. I will need a book. And maybe I'll need something else to play my music on, but I could probably still, if it is 24 hours, I could probably, listen to music in my head. If I have a book, I'll be fine. But
Your favorite holiday destination?
I think it is India. I think any place in India, and probably one place that I would want to, where I can't get enough of is Bangalore.
And lastly, your favorite food?
Masala dosa. It has to be that.
I've had a great time today talking to you. Thank you so much for joining me. And I want to wish you all the very best in all your future projects and endeavors.
Oh, thank you very much. Again, it's very kind of you to invite me to this chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much.